Hello Aquarius and welcome to your reading. This is Bright Soul Collective Tarot. My name is Laura and these will be your intuitive insights and advice for the month of July 2022. This reading will be for Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and Rising. So by all means, if you know your three major placements, feel free to listen to any and all of the readings that apply, as each one of them may resonate for you differently. And as always, keep in mind these readings are all general in nature. They're meant to apply to a more broad collective of individuals. So that means that not necessarily all of the information that comes through will be for you. Definitely take anything and everything that does resonate for you, however that might connect to your personal situation, however that resonates for you. And keep an open mind to anything that might be helpful, and otherwise you can just leave the rest. So Aquarius, I hope you're doing well. I hope that June was good to you and that your summer has been enjoyable. Very much looking forward to seeing what July has in store for you. But as always, before we get into your oracle and tarot cards, I am going to kick off the reading by sharing with you the channeled energetic impression and channeled messages that I took some time to connect with before I got your cards out. So it was kind of a very different energy. So you guys are in the last half of my readings. So I've already done quite a few, like probably 7 or so. And yours was very unique and very different from all of the readings that I've done yet. So my first impression when I connected with your energy, it was like a lot more sharp and focused than the others. So it's like sharp, focused, and very much like getting down to business and all business. So you might be particularly focused on like work or the more practical side of life, just getting things done, being efficient, like crossing things off your list. But it's interesting because that was like the most immediate, and it was almost kind of like the superficial impression that I got, and then it kind of started to get a little bit deeper. And so I did sense like that there's someone or something like sentimental, perhaps from your past, or perhaps more connected to your emotions and like what's meaningful to you, that's on your mind or that keeps coming to surface. So perhaps it's something that you're trying not to focus on. Perhaps it's been something that you've been trying to shut down from, or it's like been a long-term kind of energy that just keeps resurfacing, like it's not going away, it's just on your mind, that you're trying to push down and avoid. And it's kind of like perhaps the reason that you're doing that is because you're just seeing it as a distraction or something that's taking away from your ability to like just focus and get things done in a more practical sense. And it's like you're cursing anything that's distracting you from like what needs to be done. And it could just be a sense of being overwhelmed and perhaps you don't have the resources to deal with something more sentimental or emotional in nature. And then it's kind of like, so the kind of the sense that I got is it's like you're focusing on the more practical external sides and like taking action and getting stuff done, and maybe trying to shut off from the deeper, more emotional stuff that's going on. Because I kind of got the sense of like going through the motions and not being super engaged. And when I say super engaged, I mean like engaged on a more intuitive, emotional level, one that's like more meaningful, like a deeper level of love. I was going to say loyalty, love and meaning and connection, you know, like just a deeper sense of emotional fulfillment. So it's like you're almost not engaged on that level. It's just kind of like going through the motions, getting things done. And then I must say, like right before I get into your channeled messages, that the messages that were coming through, they did have a sense of heaviness, like an emotional heaviness. And I'm not going to say necessarily that it's like that you're going through a really awful time or that you're depressed. You might be struggling with those kinds of situations or those emotions, but I did get the sense that like the more that I kind of delved in, the more that there's like some heavy stuff that's really going on under the surface. So perhaps this kind of focusing on getting stuff done, you might be feeling like you're in a bit of a survival mode. And it just might not be the right time for you to kind of delve in, or you might just be really overwhelmed by the deeper kind of heavier stuff that's going on. And so you're just trying to focus right now on like where your power is like external in your external environment, and that might be kind of a way of just coping for right now, which is okay. But so I don't know if that makes sense to you, but this is very much the impression I got. So for your first channeled message, it was going to the beach. And so I don't know if going to the beach is something that you do religiously. Perhaps there's some kind of significance there. Maybe it's like your happy place. Maybe it's something that you do regularly and it's like a good kind of opportunity for you to shut off and relax, have some good times, like kind of unwind a little bit. Maybe it's something that you used to do or that you really enjoy that you haven't been doing, and perhaps it's reconnecting with that and prioritizing it. But yeah, I get the sense that kind of like a mini vacation, like getting out in nature, being at the beach. It might be just something that's beneficial for you, something that you want to do this month. And also I find it's always interesting when people are drawn to like water or bodies of water, spending time around water, because water is connected to our emotions, love, happiness, fulfillment, our intuitive awareness, and like deeper levels of connection and meaning. So it could be that, you know, you're longing to connect, and water can be really healing, and just being in nature and around water can be really healing for us on an emotional level. So perhaps that is something that's helping you to connect. The next message that came through for you was like an energetic barrier or force field. And the sense that I got was like, you know, you think about it like in a sci-fi sense, like around like a spaceship or something like that. But the way that it kind of came through for you is it's like, it's almost like I don't know, it might be something that you envision yourself doing, like to be untouchable, but you might like envision or try to actually create an energetic barrier, like a force field around yourself that people can't get through. So, you know, we talk about people having walls up, and being guarded emotionally. So it's kind of like, you know, they're not necessarily willing to be open or honest or forthcoming, maybe not to answer questions, to let people see beyond. And this is kind of like that on steroids. So it's not just the idea of having walls up and only sharing certain things. It's kind of like the idea that you are just completely, you know, untouchable to the people around you. And so it could be that, you know, you're really trying to keep people out. You're trying to keep people from connecting with you, from making an impression on you, maybe from being attached to people, because being attached or experiencing like love and connection with people makes you feel vulnerable, because then you are susceptible to loss, losing that person, and the difficult emotions that come along with like loving somebody and being really emotionally connected. So I kind of get the sense that it's like you're almost trying to hide and not necessarily let people get all the way through, so that you're not making those connections. Or it could be an old habit, like perhaps something that you're working on, but your initial instincts, when you have moments for connection or vulnerability, might be to kind of put those walls up to try and protect yourself. And you might kind of think that there's an advantage to it because it makes you untouchable, and you know, you're not swayed by emotion or by connection to other people, and you've kind of got like your cards close to your chest. So you might think that there's an advantage to doing that. But I think that if you do feel that way, if that resonates for you, like, it's just to consider the immense amount of depth and connection and meaning and love that you're missing out on, because if you're cut off from it, then it can't impact you in any good way. And that's one of the most meaningful and important kind of parts of the human experience, is that it's can be positive and negative, but you know, that is really kind of what drives us, what gives us that meaning, like beyond just the superficial. So yeah, that might be something that you're struggling with, or you have struggled with in the past, or perhaps somebody close to you has that kind of barrier in place. The next message that came through for you was kind of, it took me a while to figure it out, because it kept repeating in my head, and I was like, I don't really understand it, but it's more than I am. So the sense like you might be somebody who draws comparisons. So perhaps you're prone to like competition, comparing like who you are, what you have, what you're good at, as opposed to other people. Maybe you're constantly looking at people that you feel like have more than you have. make more money, have more stability, have more happiness, you know, better skills. And perhaps you're trying to emulate that, or perhaps you're trying to increase your sense of like abundance or stability. So you might be hyper focused on people that you think that have more, and it might be kind of inspiring a sense of lack, which could have you feeling a little bit frantic to get ahead, particularly if it is in a kind of material, financial sense. And then there's also what came through with more than I am is like recognizing that there's more than just you, right? So it's like you might be very focused on yourself and your beliefs, the way that you see the world, and kind of like your lens that you view everything through, and not necessarily seeing that there's like a bigger picture. There's bigger things at play. There's a huge level of like unseen connection. So it's not just that like everybody lives the same kind of life that you live and believes the same kind of things. Like we're not lemmings, right? So it's like there's a whole lot more out there beyond you that you're not necessarily seeing or connecting with. And that is kind of like on a deeper level. So there might be a sense of like wanting to connect with that. I have no idea. However, that might apply to you. The next message that came through was denial. And so it's kind of like I got the sense like that there's something on your mind, something that impacts you, and like something that keeps coming up for you that you can't necessarily avoid or push down, that you're in denial about, or perhaps you're denying yourself, you're trying to bury it. So it's like, and this would be anything that feels uncomfortable, potentially dangerous. It could be like emotionally. And so it's kind of thinking like, okay, what is it? What is it that you feel avoidant of? What is it that you might be denying? What is it that keeps kind of resurfacing that you have to kind of just be like, oh no, I don't want to deal with this, or like, oh no, this isn't good, I gotta push that down. And think about why. So it's like, why are you denying it? Why are you pushing it down? Why can't you take ownership of it? And I don't mean take ownership of it in like a condescending way, but I mean like, why can't you own that as a part of who you are and a part of your experience, right? And what is it trying to tell you? Like, what are you scared of? Right? Because a lot of times when we're in denial, it's out of self-protection, right? Because we take a look at whatever it is and we're like, oh, that's uncomfortable, or that makes me feel unsafe, or like, I don't like how that feels. And a lot of times, like, we're scared of, like, maybe it'll bring us to a realization, and that realization means that we need to let go of someone or something, or that we need to take action and change. And sometimes change is scary, so it can be easier to kind of push things down so that we stay in a comfort zone that we know, even if we're not particularly happy in that comfort zone. So it's like, usually denial is rooted in some kind of fear, and sometimes we are afraid that we're not able to handle it, right? So it's like, if that realization or that thing that we're denying means that we're going to come to a deeper level of understanding of like who we are and what we want, that might just shake up our reality and require us to undertake so much change and to kind of shift everything that we thought was stable. And maybe we don't feel as though we're capable of handling that, or maybe we're not prepared to undertake that amount of change or come to that realization yet. So we're kind of just protecting ourselves either indefinitely or until we're in a space where we feel like we're able to like fully kind of process that. It could be trauma too. So it's just kind of, I'm not saying that you have to do anything with it, but I'm saying it might be good to do a little bit of reflection and figure out like, how are you connecting to that? Like, what is it tied to? What does it make you feel? Why might you be doing that for yourself? Because there might be something that you can do to kind of, empower yourself to feel a little bit better. And then the last message that came through was endings and beginnings. And it's recognizing that we're always going through cycles in life. Endings are necessary, whether it is like a literal ending or not. It's recognizing that things come to an end, sometimes whether we like it or not. Sometimes we lose things and we can't go back, and that it can be difficult, and sometimes we can have like challenging thoughts, emotions. Sometimes there can be grief, but ultimately we're not serving ourselves by resisting endings and stepping into new beginnings. We are just kind of by doing that, we just kind of prolong our suffering, because resisting it isn't going to change the situation. It's not going to fix the situation. It's not going to take you back in time, right? It's just going to keep you feeling stuck in a place that, you know, probably isn't too happy. So you might have some work to do, or maybe some concerns around endings, something that has ended, or perhaps you've processed an ending, but you are feeling resistant to kind of fully move on and step into something new. So it might be worth taking a look at endings and beginnings, and seeing, like, is there any way that you might be self-sabotaging because you're kind of holding on to the past or resisting something that is, and you might actually be robbing yourself from the opportunity to connect with something that could potentially be really beneficial to you, right? And knowing that it's natural to feel resistant to those cycles, but you know, they are in our best interest, and that's kind of how we learn and grow and move through the world. So we're inevitably going to perpetually be going through endings and beginnings, and it's an opportunity for rebirth, right? But it also involves change, and sometimes change is not easy. So your oracle message for this month is Between Worlds, and it's card number 3, which is usually like instability. There's a certain amount of instability. And as you can see, it's kind of interesting. So it's like this flamingo is walking from like one side to the other, but it's like stuck between the two, and it's kind of like black and white, doom and gloom, and then like color and like sun and like a tropical landscape. And it's also wearing a crown. So it's kind of like, it's almost like being victorious, coming into this new, I don't know, experience. So with Between Worlds, this might actually connect to that whole endings and beginning thing, because that really speaks to this energy. Because the fact is that obviously there are times of ending, and there are times to step into new beginnings in life as we move through these cycles. But inevitably, in between the ending and the beginning, there is kind of like a transitional space, a transitional time. So it's like we're not quite where we were, and we can't be that version of ourselves because things have been changed indefinitely. So it's like we have no choice essentially but to move into this new energy, to walk through that door. But as we're moving across the threshold, we're in between spaces, right? So it's like we're not quite who we were, and we're not yet who we will become, if that makes sense. So it's like we are still connected to our past in a situation that perhaps ended or wasn't serving us any longer, but we haven't fully stepped into a new energy and new lessons and begun integrating that into our reality and benefiting from it. So we can be in this space that's kind of cloudy and unknown, and it can also kind of result in a little bit of an identity crisis, or like a loss of a sense of self, particularly if there's been a major shift in your environment, in your relationships, and your perception of the world, like just how you relate to other people. So it can be kind of an uncertain time, and it's recognizing that with that uncertainty and with that kind of like not having the comfort of what was, and still having to kind of accept that there's a lot of uncertainty in the future, and you don't know how things are going to play out, and you can't possibly know or control. It's like sometimes you're just stuck in a space where everything is unknown and you feel a little bit off. There can be longing for your past situation and fear of your future situation, and you can feel just kind of stuck. You can feel stuck. You can feel like a lack of clarity. You can even feel fear, like a sense of instability, and it's recognizing that sometimes all we can do is just exist in that discomfort. There's not necessarily anything that you can do to remedy it. There are certainly things that you can do to resist it, which ultimately would like prolong your experience of being in that transitional space where things are not quite making sense, and you're not quite feeling like yourself, and you don't really know what's happening. So it's like, obviously we don't want to prolong that and stay in that space for longer than we need to. But because there's so much discomfort and there can be so much uncertainty, we can fall victim to fear and overthinking and anxiety, and that can cause us to project a lot of like really challenging, potentially disempowering things into our future, which kind of taints the opportunity for something great before we've really even stepped into it. So it's being aware of like, it's okay, like it's normal that we have these times where like things just don't make sense and we're in between two worlds, like, or two different versions of ourselves. And that we just kind of have to accept that like we can't really do much about it and we can't really take action because we don't have the clarity or the information that we need to know how to handle that situation with grace. It is just kind of out of our control. And so, yeah, you may feel as though you're kind of in like a no man's land, and that, you know, maybe you're not happy where you are and you don't know where you want to get to or how you might get there. So you might feel kind of blind, like in terms of what your future is, what your goal is. And this is like, you could be in a space right now coming into it. You might have been here for a while. But it's kind of asking you to let go, right? So it's like, let go of any assumptions that you might make about yourself or your situation, your past or your future, and just be kind of open to being in the present moment, being in this space of uncertainty, and kind of having the curiosity to see how things unfold without trying to understand or predict or to limit yourself, right? Because the beautiful thing about stepping into the unknown is that, yeah, it's just that, it's unknown. So, you know, things could turn out more better. Things could turn out like more beautifully or better than you could ever possibly imagine. But if you spend your time trying to figure it out, then you're likely to limit yourself to a version of reality that, first off, might not serve you, but might also kind of block your blessings and block opportunities that might take you somewhere better than you can imagine, right? So right now, the most important thing for you to do is to admit that you're in this space and that it's okay for you to be in this space and that you don't necessarily know. Like, you don't necessarily know where you are or what you're doing or how things are going to happen, because it's having that ability to just accept that you don't know and to kind of lay your ego down. And because your ego is what wants to control and ultimately makes you really susceptible to fear. And so it's kind of like, if you're able to lay down your need to know what's happening, then you can experience what's going on right now. You can connect to yourself without a whole bunch of external noise, right? And you can kind of wait to see how things unfold, and you can almost be like a blank canvas where you can be shaped by life, and you're there and you're willing to experience things as they unfold and let things kind of progress for you organically, rather than feeling as though you need to figure it all out and make it happen. So I think in the midst of like uncertainty and kind of being in transition, it's really important for you to just kind of cultivate curiosity and be open to new information, new experiences, new people, new realizations, new perspectives, because you might be coming into a period of time where you're being asked to level up, or you're being given the opportunity to kind of transcend in some way, like come to a new level of understanding of yourself or your relationship, or, you know, what you want out of life. So it's like trusting that things are going to be happening in support of your highest good and your best interest. And it's like, your job is just to be here. Your job is to be here, to lay down your ego, to cultivate like the curiosity of a child, and to just allow yourself to experience what life has to offer without putting a whole bunch of pressure on yourself to kind of fortune tell or predict the future, or make a plan that's going to take you in a certain direction. So it's a time for kind of exploring this transitional space, and then seeing, you know, where that takes you, and recognizing like what is being reflected to you right now in the space. So even if it's in your relationship, it's like, you might not know if this relationship is for you or if it's going to last forever, but it might be an opportunity for you to just cultivate curiosity, explore the relationship, explore your connection to this other person. You know, what do you like about them? What don't you like about them? which is ultimately reflective of what you like and don't like about yourself. So what's being reflected back to you? What lessons are there to learn? Because it's not about what's going to happen in the end. It's about what you can learn right now. And that ultimately is going to lead you on a path toward clarity and like into the next thing, right? So out of that transitional space. And yeah, it's kind of like there's a sense of whatever you're doing right now. It's like, it's kind of a gamble. So you don't know what's ahead. You don't know if it's going to turn out good or bad. So it's like, you kind of just have to be willing to flow with it, which is one of the hardest things to do. And I know I can't oversimplify. But that's why it's really important to be aware of your expectations, your assumptions, and to just try and kind of drop that off, meet yourself where you are, meet life where it is, and just try to connect with the things that feel good to you. Try and connect with the things that feel familiar or that you feel called to. And it's just kind of like, it's seeing where that might take you. But it's not an easy space to be in. So it's like it even makes me think of like, you know, the idea of the phoenix rising from the ashes, but it's like, so it's like, you might not have risen. You might be in a smoldering mess right now, right? Or it's like the butterfly in progress. Like, you might still just be in the cocoon, right? So it's like, you're not quite one, you're not quite the other. You're just in this space of kind of waiting to see. Okay, so your first card for this month is the Knight of Pentacles. I'm trying to pull less cards this month. I've been trying to make the readings shorter in the hopes that that'll give me the time and energy to do like another video for you guys this month, like a mid-month check-in or something, but it has not been working out. My videos have still been really long, so it just seems like there's always a lot of information to come through no matter what. So we'll see, but that's why there's less cards this month. So your second card is the Seven of Wands, and you've got the Seven of Cups at the bottom of the deck. And I'm going to clarify these immediately. So first we'll clarify the Knight of Pentacles. Knight of Pentacles is clarified by the Eight of Wands. And the Seven of Wands will clarify now. Seven of Wands is clarified by the Eight of Cups. And at the bottom of the deck, we have the Queen of Swords. This is kind of complicated. But I will point out, we've got two sevens and two eights, right? Sevens are a card of kind of like instability, change, but it's like recognizing that change is up to you and having to kind of connect with yourself, what feels right to you, your inner wisdom, and almost like integrating a more spiritual or intuitive approach to navigating change. Because as you're progressing along your path, you're kind of like learning lessons and having to kind of connect more with yourself, right? And then the eights showing up here, it's kind of like maybe being stuck at this stage of like progression. I don't know. But with the Seven of Cups and the Queen of Swords at the bottom of the deck, this can be like not necessarily knowing what you want for yourself. Maybe you've got a lot of options. Maybe there are a lot of things that could potentially be fulfilling, could bring you happiness, could bring you love, could bring you connection. But the thing is, it's impossible to connect with and to move toward that energy if you can't decide on what it is that you want to do. And so if each one of these cups holds the promise for something really wonderful, like kind of the life of your dreams, you can't choose all of them, right? Because if you were to try and choose like 7 different paths, you don't have the time or energy to make any valuable amount of forward movement in any of those areas, right? So it's like you kind of have to take your time to focus, to listen to yourself and what makes sense to you, and to pick one so that you can dedicate your time and effort to that, and you do yourself the honor of being able to benefit and put your time and effort to the best possible use and start to see that moving forward. So yeah, it can be a card of like having a lot of options and not knowing what to choose, fearing making the wrong decision, and it can be avoiding making a decision because you don't necessarily want to be limited to one thing or have to commit to one thing because there's a fear that you might be missing out on something else. So it could be a tendency to just not make decisions, not take any action, and just kind of daydream about all of the possibilities that are available to you without actually taking concrete action, and moving toward the one that seems the most promising to you. The other thing to go with this is like, you're not, if you take the time to consider your options carefully, you're never going to make the wrong decision, because whatever you decide, you are going to have exactly the type of experience that you're meant to gain the skills and knowledge and experience that you need to kind of further your personal growth and development. And just because you choose this cup, it doesn't mean like that thing that you choose is the be all end all. Perhaps you'll have that experience, you'll learn from it, and then you'll move on to the next thing, right? Because we always move through these cycles. But for it to come up with the Queen of Swords is all about being willing to acknowledge your own personal truth and to communicate in a manner that is fair and truthful and direct, and to not be compromising, right? So it's like the words that you speak, the beliefs that you hold, have the opportunity to transform your life, because what we believe is ultimately what's real, because our mind is powerful and we are limited by our beliefs, whether they're positive or negative. And so it's most important to kind of figure out like, what is your truth? What's true for you? What makes sense for you? And to allow yourself the opportunity to connect with that and to use that to transform your life and your situations, instead of being at the effect of your situations and allowing your external circumstances to influence like your mind and your beliefs. So it's like kind of claiming your power, speaking your truth, and making decisions from an empowered place that it's fair and equal to you and to others. And it can also mean like being honest with other people, even if it's difficult. It's about being honest in a nurturing and supportive and tactful way. So this could be like you kind of trying to figure out what your truth is so that you can choose the cup of happiness and fulfillment that is going to be most beneficial to you. So that's the underlying energy that's kind of it's like the past energy that's kind of informing what's going on for you this month. And the interesting thing is your challenge, or the challenging energy that's potentially blocking you or kind of holding you back from connecting with your highest outcome, is showing up as the Knight of Pentacles and the Eight of Wands. So the Knight of Pentacles, it kind of connects with that energetic impression that I was telling you about like just kind of being really focused on business, right? It's like you don't want distractions, you just want to get stuff done, you want to make progress. And it's like it could be focusing on the more basic practical side of life, which could be work, money, savings, paying your bills, domestic tasks. If you have your own business, it could be, it's like showing up every day, just doing the basics to keep your business running, perhaps even learning and development to acquire the skills that you need to keep your business running, that kind of stuff. So this is like a very slow moving, focused energy. So it's like putting in the work each and every day consistently to get you to where you need to be and whatever you're trying to manifest, whatever goal you're trying to hit. So it's very practical, it's very focused on the end goal, and it's very much tied to the material world. So that would be money, career, your material possessions, your material abundance, stability, home and family life. And yeah, so this is like a very focused, slow moving energy. It's very hardworking. It's a very admirable energy. And the interesting thing is that it's come up with the Eight of Wands, and the Eight of Wands is almost kind of like the opposite, because the Eight of Wands is a very fast paced, fast moving, passionate, almost aggressive, like moving really quickly toward a goal without question, without doubt. So it could be that you're trying to like you're trying to balance out just slow and steady, taking those practical steps day by day, because this can be like the less glamorous sides of life. This is like, it's not particularly enjoyable. It could be boring, monotonous work, and it's just the stuff that you have to do every day just to be successful and to eventually get to your goal, whatever that goal is. And then this is like the part of you that's just like excited and passionate and aggressive and like just wants to get out there and get it done quickly and see your manifestation, come to fruition. So it can be, it's a very motivated energy, and it's definitely a good energy to kind of capitalize on. There's a lot of vitality, there's a lot of forward movement. And so it can be like maybe you're at odds with yourself, and maybe even like with the juxtaposition here in between worlds, like maybe you're also struggling being in between this slow, steady, focused on just doing what you need to do day to day to get to your end goal, and then like wanting to be there now and all of this passion that doesn't necessarily have an outlet, right? So it's like you could be fighting against yourself. But yeah, that's also what I was picking up on. So you might be too focused, because this is coming up as your challenge. You might be too focused on the practical day-to-day stuff, and you're not actually paying attention to your inner world, or connecting to your emotions or your intuition, or prioritizing fun and enjoyment and your relationships, right? Which it could be kind of amplifying this passionate energy, because passion and creativity and excitement and the things that we long for, the things that drive us to work toward our goal and to kind of sustain the more practical, boring parts of life, it's like this is the same energy that inspires anger and aggression, right? And it's like, so if we don't have a creative outlet, if we're not feeling creatively fulfilled, if there isn't an outlet for that passion, if we're not experiencing it and integrating it into our daily life, we tend to suppress it, right? And when we suppress it, it just kind of builds and builds and pressure builds. And so we end up with anger and resentment, because that energy is really volatile, and it's really good energy to kind of invest into whatever you're trying to create. But if you're not infusing it into your life and you're not experiencing it and benefiting from it, then it's kind of like a pressure cooker, right? So it's like resentment builds, that energy has to go somewhere. So I'm not sure how you might relate to that specifically, but that's coming up as your challenge. And these are two very different energies. So you might be struggling between like following your passion and your desires, maybe something creative. So there could be a creative hobby, a creative outlet, a person that you're passionate about that you're not connecting with, but it's like that drive, that the desire, the passion, the creativity, that essence that's within you, it's not going away. Whether you are acknowledging it and satisfying it or not, it's still kind of there. So it's like you might be trying to figure out, you might be stuck between these two worlds of like, well, I have to just go to work and make money and pay my bills and come home and cut the grass and like just do the practical things. But it's like, if you're not using this passion, it can come back to bite you, right? In a certain sense. So it's like, you might as well use that energy to your advantage, but it's just about kind of figuring out how you're at odds with yourself as you're in this transitional space. And so in order to kind of help you overcome this energy, this challenge, however that manifests for you in your specific situation, you're being encouraged to connect with the energy of the Seven of Wands and the Eight of Cups to kind of help you, transcend it and connect with, get a little bit closer to that highest outcome for you. And what I really love about this combination is that it very much has to do with yourself, your well-being, your perspective, your personal kind of experience. So it's not focused on the outside world. It's not thinking about what you have to do or what other people are doing, or like comparison, or necessarily even like having a very clear defined vision for the future. It's just about kind of being here and now and being willing to open up yourself to opportunity instead of focusing so heavily on what you think you know. and what you think you have to do in order to be successful and manifest abundance. Because this card is like, I want to manifest abundance and I'm trying to do everything I can day by day to get there. But you might be selling your soul to try and connect with material abundance, and you're denying that kind of spark that's within you. So the nice thing is that the Seven of Wands is really all about, it's really all about connecting to and harnessing your personal power. So creating a certain level of inner peace, of awareness of like who you are, what's important to you, awareness of your strength, and the ability to maintain focus on your inner world, and kind of, the only control that you can exert is control, how you respond to life. That's your choice, right? And so this is the idea. Like the Seven of Wands is often a card of like, either life situations are kind of poking at you or trying to beat you down. Maybe there are people around you that are trying to knock you off kilter. Maybe they're questioning you. Maybe they're sabotaging you. But the idea is, so here she is sitting here and she's being jabbed by these wands. These people are trying to knock her off her balance, off her game, trying to distract her, right? And this is probably all trivial stuff that doesn't matter, right? But the thing is, we can allow things that we don't care about, and people that we don't care about, and things that are completely irrelevant to who we are and what we're trying to create. We can still allow those things into our space and into our energy, and we can allow those things to knock us off our balance and like sabotage our inner peace, right? So this is her recognizing that she already has everything that she needs to manifest the life of her dreams and to do what she needs to do. So this spark, this inner light, that is her guiding light, and it's unique to her. It's her passion, it's her creativity, it's her reason, right? So it's like, what is your reason for manifesting abundance? It's like, wanting to live a life that makes sense to you, wanting to live a life that is fulfilling, that is inspired, right? And so it's recognizing that that light is yours and it cannot be dimmed unless you allow someone else to dim it. And so it's kind of like there's a sense of Zen, and she's just like meditating. She's focusing on who she is. She's focusing on her strengths, and then what she's trying to create for herself, knowing that whatever else is going on around her is just noise. And it's recognizing that, so she's kind of like on a pedestal here, and the wands that are trying to knock her off her post are coming from below. So it's just like the things that are poking at you, the things that are like, it could be people saying things, it could be people undermining you or trying to get you to question yourself or trying to control you or whatever. But it's like the things that are coming at you from a place that isn't supportive of your highest good, that isn't empowering, it's not relevant to you because it's below you. So it's like, don't allow yourself to be taken off track or discouraged by people who are doing less than you or who don't have your best interests at heart, right? So it's recognizing that you already have the upper hand, you already have the advantage, and the only thing that's going to cause you to fall is allowing yourself to focus on kind of the negative stuff that's going on, or the things that are trying to knock you off your game. So it's like, it's your decision to connect with your peace. It's your decision to kind of maintain your focus, maintain your inner balance, and know you're already victorious, right? So it's like, but your work isn't done. You still have work to do. You're still moving along your path. So you can't allow yourself to be brought down, because you still need to take this spark and cultivate it and allow it to take you forward, right? And with the Eight of Cups being here, the Eight of Cups is all about being willing to leave behind things that are sad, that are heavy, that are connected to really challenging emotions. So it can be like disappointments, losses, past experiences, things that you thought were going to be fulfilling, relationships that you thought were going to be fulfilling, be all end all, filled with love, that didn't ultimately work out, or jobs that you thought like this is my ticket, and like maybe it's not. So it's recognizing that we have all of these cups available to us, right? And just because it doesn't work out, or just because we had hope and we made a decision and it's not offering us the love and the fulfillment and the excitement that we thought it would, it doesn't mean that we failed, and we don't have to focus on it as a loss, but it was a learning experience. We were meant to have that experience to gain insight and to figure out like, okay, this didn't work for me, or this actually isn't what I want, so that you get more clarity on what to move toward. And the fact is, like, all of these cups of happiness or potential love or potential fulfillment are like broken. They're no good. They didn't work out, right? And it's like you have a choice that you can sit there and focus on every single disappointment, every single loss, every single difficult situation that has connected to like challenging emotions, and you can wallow in it and you can lose hope, right? Or you can acknowledge like, hey, yeah, this stuff didn't work out. Yeah, it was difficult. Yeah, it was painful. Yeah, maybe I lost people. Maybe I lost opportunities. Maybe I lost hope. But it's being willing to say, they didn't serve me for a reason. There's a reason that this isn't the be all end all. There's a reason that this, because it's kind of like rejection is divine protection. So if something doesn't work out for you, or, you know, you get what you want and you're happy, but then it's like, it's not going to sustain you forever. There's a reason for that. You're not meant to tie up your energy in that forever. You're not meant to relegate yourself to something that isn't ultimately going to serve your highest good. So it's most important to kind of honor that experience and say like, hey, if this isn't working out, if it's not aligned, it's for a reason. And the best thing that you can do is just to kind of acknowledge the experience that you've had, acknowledge like how you've grown, or what you now know and how you can do better for yourself as a result, and be willing to walk away from that, right? So it's like relieve yourself of the burden. You don't have to stay in that situation and play it out indefinitely, and you don't have to let it like hang on to you for the rest of your life. So you might need therapy, to be honest, or maybe just talking about it, acknowledging those emotions, and then being able to release them and walk away. So when I say release, it doesn't mean pretend like it doesn't happen or deny it, but it's kind of like honor it for what it was and allow yourself to let go of the heavy parts so that you can connect with something better. Because you can see she's leaving them behind, and it's like she might not know what's ahead of her, and she might not know what that next cup looks like. She might not know what happiness and joy and love and fulfillment ultimately is going to look like, but she knows that there's more out there, and she's willing to kind of walk there to find it. So she is in this in-between worlds in this state. So she's walking out of the water, out of her emotions, out of these emotional experiences onto land, and she doesn't know what's ahead of her. So she's not quite finished here. She's still a byproduct of what has happened, and she hasn't quite stepped into the next experience or next life lesson, right? And so it's understanding that you have to allow yourself to move beyond those really heavy emotions that can tie you down, that can destroy your hope and prevent you from being willing to connect with opportunities for love and happiness and abundance, and that in a more meaningful and deep kind of way. And that when you're in that transitional space, when things are not clear and you're having to do the heavy work of processing what has happened to you, and letting it go and moving on from it, which is not easy by any means, and then stepping into a future that is so completely cloudy and unknown that you don't have any sense of safety or stability. The only safety and stability that you can really have is internally, and that's your belief in yourself and the spark that's inside of you, and knowing that like that's what's driving you, that's what's motivating you. And when you connect with that, you can protect yourself, right, from the things that are trying to sabotage you or knock you off your game. And you can channel that. And the more that you connect with this light, this spark, and this inspiration, the more likely you are to infuse that into everything that you do. And the more likely that's going to influence your beliefs, the decisions that you make, and you can start to live a life that is more inspired, and to live a life that's going to be, more connected, right? So I think that's really kind of a lovely sentiment for you, Aquarius. So yeah, it's kind of like you have to find your inner light, your inner peace, and to just to kind of find that baseline for yourself, but also be really open to the experiences, to what life has to show you. Because especially if you're looking for that next thing or that next opportunity, and that is yet to, like, where this new world that you're walking into, that's yet to be shaped. It's the most important to be open, receptive, and curious so that you can see like the options that are available to you, because you know they might not be what you anticipate, right? So for your affirmations, you have, I can find peace in every breath. This very much connects to this, right? So it's like cultivating that inner peace. You might need to connect to your breath. Breath work is something that's really good for like grounding your energy, calming your nervous system, combating anxious thoughts and feelings. So like breath work and meditation might be something that's helpful to you. Like it's proven that like taking deep breaths can calm our nervous system and kind of bring us back down. So even if you're not somebody that really believes in that or connects to that, it's like it's worth a try because you might be surprised. And then your next affirmation is, when I respect my money respects me. So that very much, it kind of connects to this. So if money is something that you find yourself distracted by or fixated on, particularly if you feel like you don't have enough money or material abundance, or you're very much fixated on connecting with more, you might be coming from a lack mindset, like a fear that you don't have enough or a fear that you won't have enough. And that might be what's driving you to cultivate more. And because you're fearing that you don't have enough, that is being woven into the work that you're doing. And that's ultimately like, it's really hard to connect with abundance when you believe that you don't have enough and you're afraid that you never will, because that's the opposite of abundance. If you don't believe that you can connect with more, and if you don't believe that you already have a great deal of abundance and you're already blessed, then it's really hard to connect with more, because that's not what you're thinking about. That's not what you're feeling. That's not what you're looking for. When you're in a place of lack and fear and worry about money, that's what you're thinking. That's what you're seeing. And you are limited by that perspective, which limits you to things that are going to continue to limit your abundance, right? So it makes it really hard. Your idea about money and your ideas about abundance, if they're inspired by negative feelings, cannot result in more abundance, really, because you're saying, I want this, but you're kind of doing the opposite, or you're believing the opposite. So it's recognizing your financial resources, recognizing your abundance, and having respect for it, understanding that it's kind of, it's one of your biggest, it's another kind of energetic resource, right? And so when you can respect your money, the money that you have, what that allows you to do, if you can be mindful and allow yourself to feel abundant and be intentional about appreciating your money and the things that it allows you to do when you're spending your money, when you're saving your money, instead of being like, oh, I don't have enough, right? When you say you don't have enough, or when you feel or fear that you don't have enough and you need more, you're not paying respect to what you already have. And it's like, what would happen if you didn't have that money? So the money that you feel isn't enough right now, what would happen if you didn't even have that, right? So it's like, it's still doing something for you, even if you don't feel like you have enough. So it's kind of like trying to cultivate that abundance mindset where it's like, yes, maybe I would like more, but I have enough. I'm grateful for what I have. And that in turn, it kind of heals your relationship to money, and it makes it easier for you to connect with more, because you're not coming from this place of lack and desire, which inherently blocks you from, because it's like, you don't want to be looking to your money and material goods to give you something that you don't have right now, because it can't, right? That's not its job. Okay, so and that might just be a very specific message for like one or two of you. I don't know. But it might help. So we're going to get you one final oracle message, and I'm just going to read directly from the book. And this is the Starseed Oracle. So I've kind of been warning everybody that it's definitely more spiritual and out there in nature, which some people connect more with that kind of like esoteric, outside of the norm perspective, and other people don't and shut down to it. So I would just say, like, some of the cards are more practical than others, and some of them are really kind of out there. So I would say it's more important to see, like, how can you relate to it? What does it inspire within you? It doesn't necessarily mean that that thing or that concept that's out there is something that you have to believe, but it's like, you know, it's beneficial for us to connect with different perspectives, and that's why I like these decks. So it's all about, like, how you feel, like what it inspires in you. So your card for this month is Weight of the World. So it says boundaries, let it go. It's not yours to carry. So that's interesting. So perhaps what's keeping you stuck from making a decision, connecting to your truth, honoring your inspiration, following a path that makes more sense, and that has you so focused on the more practical side of life, is like maybe you feel a responsibility to provide for other people. And maybe you're putting a lot of extra pressure on yourself, and it's kind of draining and you feel like you need to do that. So it's kind of detracting from the more like emotional side of life. I don't know. Anyways, I'm going to read this directly from the book. So Weight of the World. So it says, you don't need to carry it all. You're no good to anyone if you're running on empty and bogged down by the weight of the world. This card is a reminder to look after your own well-being before anyone else's, to stop carrying the world's problems on your shoulders, to put on your own oxygen mask first. In these changing times, it's hard not to feel overwhelmed by the state of the planet. However, you can't take on its problems from a place of energetic depletion. This card is thanking you for caring so much. You want to build a better world and ease the road for others, and that's incredible. But the way you've been doing so is likely unsustainable. This isn't to say you should switch off the world's problems and become unconscious. Rather, it's a call to establish clear boundaries so you're not constantly taken out energetically. The planet needs you to be healthy, both physically and emotionally. So instead of digesting the news or reaching for your phone as soon as you wake up, show up first to a nourishing practice such as meditation, soul inquiry, deep breathing, or exercising in nature. Once you're in a state of grace and your inner well is full, you can face the day, the state of the world, and care for others. And at the day's end, take an energetic shower by emptying out anything that's not yours to carry. You can pick it up again the next morning if you so choose, but give yourself time and space to rejuvenate and rest. And then there's an inquiry that goes along, and it says, what are you carrying that isn't even yours? So, and I think that's important to keep in mind, especially in a transitional space where you're kind of moving away from something that's ended and stepping into something new that's still yet to be formed. It's that, you want to relieve yourself of anything that's not yours, any weight that you're carrying that isn't serving you, anything that isn't in your highest interest. And especially because being in a period of transition and uncertainty can be really draining, you need to focus on yourself and to keep yourself in good health. You don't want to be carrying stuff that's not yours or feeding too much into other people's stuff. It's like you really need to practice self-care and awareness, because the situation in general, what you're going through, is going to be challenging and draining and limiting on your resources. And you may not have as much to give to others right now, or as much to give as you usually do, or you may not be able to get by with the amount that you kind of like focus on and support other people. So it's like a reprioritization of self, and kind of being aware of like what it is that you're carrying that isn't going to serve you, that might hold you down, or that isn't yours to carry, so that you're not taking that, and that could be an old habit too, so that you're not taking that into this new kind of promising opportunity, right? So yeah, I think there's probably a lot of reflection to be done, but it's remembering that the power is within you. You are the answer. You're your own best advocate. It all starts with you. So if you start to recognize and honor your power and take care of yourself first and foremost, it's going to be a lot easier for you to make use of your energy in a way that's going to be beneficial, and it's going to allow you to manifest, and connect with opportunities that are going to be kind of meaningful and abundant and fulfilling for you specifically, based on who you are and what you need. So Aquarius, I'm going to leave your reading there. I hope this was helpful. If you did enjoy this reading, the best way to support me is by liking this video on YouTube. You can also leave a comment. Beyond that, if there's anyone you could think of that might enjoy or benefit from my readings, you can feel free to share my content, and make sure you head to my channel at Bright Soul Collective Tarot to check out my other videos, and ensure that you're not only subscribed to my channel but also signed up for notifications, because that is what will keep you up to date on new readings as they're posted. So it's been an absolute pleasure. I hope July is good to you. Very excited to read again for you next month, but in the meantime, I'm wishing you all the very best.